Okay, so to start the granny square, the crochet granny square, you're going to want to start with your center color. So obviously this is the color pattern that I'm doing, so I'm starting with this lilac color to do the center. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is make a slip knot. So I do mine kind of like this, put it behind, put it up like that, and then obviously insert your hook. Now I'm going to do a substitute for a magic ring. If you want to do a magic ring instead, then you can, but I prefer to do it this way. What you're going to want to do is chain 4, and then into the front, like the first loop on like the hook, well, the first loop that you crocheted, first stitch, you're going to want to put your hook through that and slip stitch into that. Once you've slip stitched into that, then you're gonna chain 2, and that's that kind of fake magic ring. Then you're gonna do 15 double crochets into the gap. So you're gonna do 15 into that little hole there, that one right there. You're gonna do 15 double crochets. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While you're doing these double crochets in the loop, you're gonna want to like crochet over this tail, because like that's what kind of holds it together, so that when you like pull the tail, it's going to tighten it through because it's underneath all these stitches. So I've found that when you do this fake magic ring and you don't crochet over the tail, it usually just stays open. You can't really tighten it that much. But if you crochet over the tail, you do all 15 double crochets over this tail, it makes the gap super tight. So once you've done your 15 double crochet, it should look a little bit something like this. All I'm going to do now is kind of like move this tail back, and then if you have a look, you're going to want to go into the first stitch that you made. So not the, well, you can, some people do go into the second chain 2 stitch, but I don't like to do that. I'm going to go into the first stitch that I made. So if you just look above, find the first stitch, go into there, and you just want to slip stitch into that. Once you've slip stitched into that, you just want to chain 1. That's just to secure the slip stitch, and then cut your wool. I also pull the tail in the middle a bit tighter. So that is now the center of your flower. So let's go on to row 2. So to start off row 2, what you want to do is you want to insert your hook into any one of these stitches. So the 16th stitch in this little circle is that slip stitch that you made. So that slip stitch counts as an extra stitch. So we now have 16 stitches. So we're going to want to end up with 16 clusters. If you have a look, this is that row, and these are the clusters that we're going to be making, and you should have 16 of them. So I like to start by inserting into this slip stitch, because then I can weave in this end as I crochet. So all you want to do is like put your hook underneath that slip stitch. So this is what mine looks like. Going right underneath there, and then you're going to get your second colour. Mine's green. You're just going to like hold it kind of like this, loop it so that your hook has got it, and then pull it up and pull it through. So now it's attached onto this. And then you're just going to want to chain 1. Then what you're going to want to do is you want to yarn over, insert your hook back into that slip stitch, pull up a loop. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to want to yarn over again for the second time, put it back into that slip stitch, pull up another loop, and now you should have 5 loops on your hook. And then for the third and final time, yarn over again, go back into that slip stitch, pull up a loop. Now you should have 7 loops on your hook, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through all these 7 loops. So you've got this kind of cluster now. Then you're going to want to chain 1, and that's how you make the cluster. So now I go into that stitch that we slip stitch into, that's the second stitch, and I'm going to hold these tails and I'm going to crochet over these tails. That just means I don't have to weave in as much after. And we're going to do the same thing that we did to make this one. So we're going to yarn over, go into that loop, pull up a loop. Now we have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over again, go back into that loop, go back into that stitch more like, pull up a loop. So now we have 5 loops on our hook, yarn over for the third and final time, insert it back into that stitch, pull up a loop, 7 loops on our hook, yarn over and go through all 7 loops, and then chain 1. So you're going to want to do that in every single one of these stitches. At some point I'm going to stop and double check that I do have 16, because this is the crucial part in making the granny square. This is where if it goes wrong, if you do more or less than you should have, it can ruin the whole square and you have to unravel. So you just want to make sure that you definitely get 16 of these. So I'm going to continue going around, and then I'll meet you back in just to double check. So now I've gone into the majority of my stitches on here. This is what mine looks like. And once again, as I said, you just want to double check to make sure that you've got 16 in total. So I'm just going to count mine. So I'm going to start with counting these kind of puff stitches that I've made. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that means I need to have 6 stitches left here. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 stitches. I have the right amount, 16, and now I'm going to carry on. So yeah, I'm going to continue crocheting now, and I'll meet you back to show you how to finish this round. So I just finished the last puff stitch of this whole thing. So I've gone into all the stitches. This is what mine looks like. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to finish this round is you want to slip stitch into the first gap that you made. So when you were chaining 1, you're making a chain 1 space. So if I show you mine, these were the first 2 puff stitches that I did, and here in between, it's only a small gap, but in between these 2 puff stitches, that gap here, that chain 1 space, that is where I'm going to slip stitch into. So let me just put my hook back in. You can see it from behind. So this is the gap I'm going into there, right there in between the stitches, and just going to slip stitch that. And then to secure it, doing a chain 1, and then I can cut the wool. So this is the end of the second round, and now we can move on to the third round, which is the petals. So now we're going to start that third row. If you have a look, once again, that third row is these petals. I'm using like this white cream colour for mine. And now we're going to start crocheting into the gaps. So as I was saying, like there's that chain 1 gap that you made all the way around here. That's what you're going to want to work into now. So I'm going into the gap that's just before that slip stitch, just where my tail is, because once again I can weave that in. And you're not going into any stitches now, it's just the gaps. So like if you have a look, that isn't a stitch, it's the gap in between the puff stitches. So you're going to want to do the same thing that we did to start the second round, is just get your wool like that, hook it in your hook and pull it up and pull it through that space, and you're going to want to chain 1. Now what you're going to do to make these petals is you're going to start by yarning over. You want to go back into that gap, pull up a loop, so you have 3 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through 2 of these loops. So now you have 2 loops on your hook. You want to yarn over again, go back into this gap for the second time, pull up a loop, so you have 4 loops, and then go through another 2. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over for the third time, go back into that gap, pull up a loop, pull through 2. So then you have 4 loops on your hook, and for the fourth and final time, yarn over and go back into that space, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and there's that 1, there's the 2. So then you have 5 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 5 of these loops. And then to finish it, chain 2. So you're going to want to repeat that into every single gap that's made by this round. So now we're going to go into the next gap, and as I said, we're going to be weaving in these ends as we go. Yarn over, go into that gap, pull up a loop, pull through 2. So now we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, 3 loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, 4 loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, 5 loops, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 5 of the loops, chain 2, and then go into the next space. So you're going to want to do this all the way around now until we get right to the end. Once again, keep weaving in them ends, and then I'll meet you back at the end to show you how to end this round. So I just finished doing like all these flowers, so I've just gone in every single gap, I've done all these flowers, finished obviously this flower with the chain 2, and you're going to want to do the same thing that you did for the second row. You're going to want to slip stitch into that first gap. So once again, here are my 2 petals, and then here is that gap that I'm going to slip stitch into, that chain 2 space. So just put your hook in there, pull up the loop, pull through to make that slip stitch, and then obviously chain 1 to secure it. And that's the 3rd row done. So now we're going to be making the 4th and the 5th row of these granny squares. So if you have a look, this is the 4th row here, and then there's the 5th row. These size squares, which I made bigger, are going to be made for the bag, and these size squares are going to be used for the pouch, because obviously they're just a bit smaller. So I'll tell you when the first round is finished, that will be how to make this square, and then obviously I'm going to add that extra row in how to make this square. So once again, you're not working any stitches, you're only working in the gaps, working them chain 2 spaces. So I'm going, if you have a look at mine, here's my slip stitch. So I'm going to go into this gap because it's one gap before my slip stitch, or you can go in whatever gap you want to do, but I'm going in this gap because then I can weave in this tail here. So you're going to want to put your hook in, do the same thing that we did for the last 2 rows, just kind of get your wool like this, hook your hook on it, and then pull up the loop, so it's like this. Now I'm starting on the side for the granny square, so what you're going to want to do is chain 1, and then into that gap do 3 half double crochets. So here's 1, 2, 3. Then in the next gap, obviously weaving in the ends as I go, you're going to want to do 3 double crochets. So in the one gap, do 3 double crochets. Now we're going to make the corner. So we've kind of made half the side for this granny square. Now we're going to make the corner. So what you're going to want to do is, firstly, you're going to want to make 3 treble crochets into the next gap. So 3 treble crochets. Once you've done the 3 treble crochets, you're going to want to chain 2. And in that same gap where we just made them 3 treble crochets, you're going to want to make another 3 treble crochets. So now we've just made the corner there. We're going to go back to making the side, and you're going to want to make, in the next gap, you're going to make 3 double crochets. Then in the gap after that, you're going to want to make 3 half double crochets. And in the gap after that, another 3 double crochets. So basically this kind of cycle is just going to keep repeating as you make the granny square. So as you can see, this was half the side, and then this kind of treble crochets and the chain 2, that makes up the corner. So here again we've made the row, so we made this kind of like side stitch, and now the next gap here we're going to make the corner, the second corner. So obviously you're going to end up with 4 corners. So we make the second corner of these 2 treble crochets of 3, and then the chain 2, and this just keeps repeating as you go around. So you're going to keep doing a corner, a side, a corner, a side, a corner, a side, a corner, and then the rest half of this side. Now in the final space, we're just going to finish off the final side by doing 3 double crochets. And then to end this row, you're going to want to slip stitch into the first half double crochet. So if you just have a look, it's like, if you have a look at the row, it's kind of like there. It's like the first half double crochet that you've done. You want to go into that, slip stitch into that. Then of course, if we were making this granny square, we would just chain 1 and then cut off that tail, and that would be that. But to make this one, we're going to do something slightly different. We are still just, so as I said, we'll just chain 1 and cut, because now we've done that first row, but we're going to do the last row now. So instead we're going to chain 2. We're not cutting the wall, we're just going to chain 2, and in that gap, so this is the gap, in this gap where we slip stitch, we're going to make 2 double crochets. Now we're only making 2 because that chain 2 represents the first double crochet, and then in every other gap 3 double crochets. In the next gap here, between the treble and the double, we're going to make 3 double crochets. And now we're at the corner here, so this is the gap for the corner. You're going to want to make 3 double crochets firstly. So 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to want to chain 2 and make another 3 double crochets. So basically all I'm doing to make this granny square bigger is just doing 2 double crochet clusters in each gap. So in every gap between the clusters on the first row, just making another 3 double crochet clusters in there. And then when I get to the corner, I'm just doing 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then another 3 double crochets. So that's literally all that is for that round. So I'll meet you back at the end to kind of just show you how to finish off this final round. So now I've done like all the clusters of the 3 double crochets in every single gap, and obviously I did the corners as well. So to finish off the 5th and final round, all you have to do is slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch that we did. So if you find that stitch, you literally just have to slip stitch into that, and then I'm just going to chain 1 and then cut the wool, and then it's done. Let me try and find it. Yeah, I'm just slip stitching into that first stitch there, and then chaining 1, cutting the wool.